Well, it's just off and on. It's kind of weird. Okay, we're live, and welcome again to our next edition of Lone Wolf and Cub. It's myself, LiteratureDevil. Thanks for coming in.
No problem. I'm always excited to talk about great literature.
Oh, this is a very unique because everyone talks about how comic books are not literature. It's like this is the great American novel, and where best to learn about the great American novel than from Japan, and that is the world of manga, where you can find a comic book or a visual representation of a story for all ages, for all types, for all kinds. And why not go to the best? And that is, of course, Kazuo Koike of Lone Wolf and Cub fame. And I think this is a given standard that if you're going to read manga, you got to read this one first. I can't imagine jumping from any other like even I have my Akira on my bookshelf here. I mean that was volume one, pretty big, thick. I guess you can call that a in the West, what would we call that? A trade paperback. They have an entire volume all in one. They
Right, yeah,
just
trade paperback.
yeah, they just publish it all in one giant big thick book. But they would release them as well as small comics, but it's mostly in like things that really fit into the palm of your hand. And I don't know if that's popular anymore. I think it's still the same format, but with the bringing it over to the West, they swap the order. Sometimes they flip the entire vertical or horizontal axis just so they could read it from left to right. I know that's kind of bizarre. Nowadays, you can't do that because all the art styles are very, what's the term? Mainstream.
Oh yeah.
There's an eye patch, and then they'll have reference to the eye patch, and they'd say the word left or right. Oh, we can't do that, so you can't flip everything. There's all kinds of tropes in manga that it's like, oh, okay, here we go. The girl with the different colored eyes, or the non-symmetrical features, um, reading from right to left, left to right. Even that's going to be prevalent in Japanese culture, so they have to keep it the way it is. Nowadays, of course, publishers are a lot smarter. They have the time, and people actually understand Japanese culture a lot more. So, voila, we have it now. Anywho, we're talking about Lone Wolf and Cub Volume 2, and I'll just put it into the chat if you guys want to read it, because you can still read it online, although I recommend picking them all up because they're that good. And wow, just what a fantastic series of volumes that we have coming up. But this, I think, is probably our favorite.
Yes, it's
And
one of my favorites anyway. At least it contains one of my favorite stories throughout the entire series, and also I think it's one of the most important. It really sets a definition, one of the or it defines one of the major themes of that goes throughout Lone Wolf and Cub that has been later kind of like watered down and kind of cut in modern mainstream media or more modern anime, manga, even in American culture. It's been more of a watered down kind of a given. But here it's a this theme that you'll recognize when we get to it. It's a it becomes one of the root pillars of Lone Wolf and Cub, and it goes into how deep that mindset actually is, the way that particular way of the warrior, the Zen uh, mindset, the one in oneself, being aware of one's surroundings, being in the right kind of spiritual set, not only just physical but mental and also spiritual. So it really sets a precedent that was later taken and people, I guess, later writers just ran with it and made it kind of less or they made it more mundane. But here in Lone Wolf and Cub, it's kind of like it seems like it's kind of one of the creators of this sort of idea of a powerful warrior character to have. Uh, but it takes it seriously. It's not something that's just a given. It goes into how it's created and how and why it works and why it's so important and how a warrior can sacrifice and what they have to go through to achieve this higher level of awareness.
this is all focused on the concept of being a warrior or a combatant or a fighter, that you have an intention to hurt someone. You have this desire to uh, enact violence, in a sense, and the only way you can combat that is with violence itself. So the philosophy is something of those who live by the sword die by the sword, I guess. But it's a much more spiritual philosophy than it is a practical one. And we learn about that in the last chapter of the book, which is where he's tasked at killing, as you see in this photo, this this Buddha-like character who has given up his self, and he is no longer, not would say no longer of this world, but he's one of those monk holy men who just he lives for the people. That's all his existence is. So the idea is that if you were to attack someone with this intention to kill, and they meet that intention with nothingness, or this concept of being in a state of no longer having a self, then you are indirectly going to be killing yourself. Now that's in a literal sense. That's how it was taken, and the assassin's like, oh my god, now I realize the what I've done. I'm shaming myself, even though has no pride as a samurai. He's thrown that all away. He says, I'm going to kill myself as a result of this big folly. And of course, the holy man says, well, don't do that. You have to stop killing, and you have to get off this path that you've taken your life on. And he's like, no, I can't do that. I mean, I've been on it. I've dedicated myself. I'm not going back. I must complete my journey. And the holy man's like, well, okay, if that's what you want to do, this is what you have to do. In
It
order,
kind of helps him out.
yeah, he does. Like, he's selfless. He doesn't care whether it's his life or whatever. He's going to allow the assassin to commit his actions of killing him.
And
So
going back to how what Lone Wolf and Cub kind of does, it kind of goes back to how it's not your traditional romantic story at all. Because in traditional romantic story, you might have a main character be a powerful, skilled assassin like Ito Ogami is. But if he has to go and attack a priest, very like a living Buddha, it's not he's not going to go kill this good man. The living Buddha will turn out to be like this corrupt individual, someone who's trying to trick the people into making him popular, to worshiping him for his own well-being and for his own ego. You know, that way the assassin comes in, and when he kills this traditionally holy and good man, it's not him killing a holy good man, it's him killing some corrupt black-hearted individual. But this is Lone Wolf and Cub, where there is no romance in here. There's only uh, harshness and brutality in here. So the living Buddha that Ito Ogami is tasked to kill, as you see in the cover there, he's legitimately a good man. He cares for the people. He's a living Buddha because he is a living Buddha. He's not some secret mastermind of underworld mastermind. He's not trying to manipulate anybody. His only goal in this, as a course of the story, is to make things better for the suffering populace. That's his only goal. He wants to make a world a better place. And there is no there's no justification. There's no moral righteousness anywhere on Itogami's side.
yeah,
When he
there's no
he has
plot twists. There's no hidden agenda. There's no there's no great reveal in the plot. It's just this is the scenario. This is life. This is what he's going to do, and the holy man accepts that. And it's all just one simple political struggle because the people look to this holy man as their community and spiritual leader, whereas they see the politicians as just these guys that are driving them crazy or taxing them or whatever, and they don't like the politicians obviously.
Yeah. And so the politicians have hired Ito Ogami to kill this Buddha so that all the power reverts from him and back to the politicians because the people would have no other choice.
Yeah, so it's a very simple setup, and they have to go through the process of how to do that, and the politicians are like, well, you just got to do it for us, and he's like, well, why should I do this? And they're explaining the scenario, but when he actually goes to do it, we've already gone through the process of him to become in this state of fighting or in this state of nothingness, which allows him to act as a sort of walking saint, the same way the Buddha does. And that's before we even learn the plot. So it's kind of like it's told in reverse that we find this weird scenario where he's just meditating on a mountain inhabited by wolves.
Yeah, it's one of the most hardcore things you see in this series because he's on this mountain like that has it's pretty much barren. They even say that it's so barren that the wolves are ravenous up there, and he like kills some wolves because they go and kill him, and then he just throws his sword away at one point. He says, "I'm not going to leave this. I'm not going to pick up my sword again until I've mastered what I need to master." but the wolves keep attacking him. So he fights the wolves off with his bare hands, and then he slaughters them with his bare hand. But he promised not to pick up the sword again. It's really hardcore because he doesn't eat or really sleep. And he builds a shelter for himself, but he just spends day after day up in this barren mountain, meditating, trying to reach this enlightenment or this kind of reverse enlightenment. This instead of bettering himself, it's kind of like trying to kill all of his humanity so he can reach this one state of mind.
Which is kind of interesting because if you're talking about a character whose main goal is revenge or vengeance, it's kind of awkward to see that. It's kind of reminiscent of when we think of Arya Stark from Game of Thrones show. She is going to go become no one. At least that's the discipline she's being taught, and she goes along with it. But secretly, she's never going to forget what her real mission is, what she's trying to do. And she hides her sword and she hides all her things, and she ends up going back. And at the last, I don't know how long the training was. I haven't seen the episodes, but what I remember from the books is that she has all this training all for revenge, and she has this bliss in her heart. She never lets it go, and it's the same concept of an assassin or a person who takes what they truly believe into their own hands and say, "This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go on this murderous path, and if I can't enact the vengeance of others that people give me contracts to, I have no right for myself. Like, who am I in the grand scheme of things to enact my own revenge?" So when he meets this holy man, he explains this, that you're gonna die, like you're gonna bring suffering to everyone. He's like, well, I know that. I'm gonna do it anyway. I have to. There's no getting off this path, and we don't know that until like near the end of the book. So here we see him, he's just meditating and trying to figure out what he has to do this. And yeah, he just pretty much just meditates in this hut that he built himself while these hungry wolves are after him.
And it's a really good visual. 'Cause I don't think it has any dialogue whenever he actually reaches this state. It just shows the wolves walking into his little hut, and then they just surround him, and they're not attacking him. And remember, they're still ravenous. That's why they're attacking anything they see. But Ogami just stands up, opens his eyes, stands up, calmly walks through this little horde of wolves, picks up his sword, which he said he would never do again until he reached that state of mind, which is a good like visual cue that he has reached this state, along with the wolves not touching him anymore. He just walks right down the mountain in the horde of all between all these wolves, and it's kind of eerie, and it's you could see he changed. I mean, he doesn't look any different, but the people around him, the things around him, react to him differently now.
Yeah, this can't be done. I don't think it can be done properly, at least in a video or movie format. It wouldn't make sense. There's nothing to show. It's just him sitting there, really. And
I think that makes it even more powerful because in the movies they probably show like some aura or some
yeah,
other nonsense.
music and whatever. You're like, no, 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 no. The comic book expresses the passage of time, and who knows exactly how long this took. This could have taken days, it could have taken hours, it could have taken weeks. We don't know. And he's just, picks up his sword again, just walks through the wolves, and then there's a group of people, and they see him. It's like, hey, that's a crazy ass samurai over there. I have no idea what that was about.
Yeah, that is how they react to him. Like, wow, that guy is a samurai. He tamed the wolves up there because that's what they said before he went up there. Is that if you go up there, you're gonna die. If you go up there, you're not coming down because the wolves will kill you. But now he came back down. He must seem like like a almost like a godlike person to them now because this he did something that they considered to be impossible. He went up there for probably weeks, and he came back down alive and pretty much unscathed.
It is awkward to think of how this actually transpired in reality if it were to be a thing. And that's just one spiritual aspect. Then there's another part of it, which is I don't know if it's a piece of folklore or a philosophy about when you find the Buddha, you kill the Buddha. Like what I didn't quite understand where that story came from. And here he just walks into this I don't know what this is, some kind of old hut, and there's all these wooden or these stone statues, and it's just bizarre. Like I like the imagery, it makes sense, but it's just like, what the heck is he doing? And you could say it's foreshadowing, you could say it's symbolic of what's about to happen, but he just pretty much desecrates all these holy objects, and here it is. It's like, may I ask you to kill a living Buddha, a difficult feat, something few, if any, could accomplish. Yet perhaps you, good sir, perhaps you, I ask you, nay, I implore you to help. And he's just chopping up these stone figures. You're like, what is going on?
And I found a little quote the monks the living Buddha says to him. He says, "If you can kill me, then truly you will have become a gateless barrier uh, of the assassin's road. Is it not said that if you meet the Buddha, kill the Buddha, meet your parents, kill your parents, yet all is emptiness. Mu is emptiness. There is nothing but the assassin's road." So well, I think what he's trying to get there is that he's trying to reach the state of Mu, because that is what the living Buddha has also entered, the state of nothingness, and that's part of Buddhism. You take away the self. You quash your desires, your needs, and become one with your spiritual side, and that's what Ito Ogami has to do. But it's he has to enter this state of mind, this state of emptiness, which means that you can't have any attachments at all. Which means you have to, if you meet the Buddha, kill the Buddha. And if you put it in the Western sense, it'd be like meet Jesus, kill Jesus. It's more of like a sign of you're doing away with religion. You're doing away with these other external matters. Meet your parents, kill your parents. You're doing away with yourself, your need for love, of that connection with other people. You're going into absolute nothingness, and basically you become a man of focus. If you go into the state of nothingness, you become a man of focus, like John Wick, and that's basically what happens. And what story wise, what this means is that since the living monk, how he explains it is that since he's living in a state of mu, state of nothingness, that he is basically nothing spiritually. Like he's basically like a ghost according to spirits, more or less. So what he talks about the assassin with the Itogami and his bloodlust, that his bloodlust will go, let's reach out and to the living Buddha. But his bloodlust can only be met with either fear or other bloodlust, which means that the fear of someone about to be killed, or the fear of another assassin trying to fight against him, or another warrior trying to fight against him. But it cannot battle someone who has reached a state of emptiness. So when he says something along the lines of if you kill me, if you attack me, you'll just be killing yourself. He's talking about his bloodlust hitting his state of emptiness, and then his state of emptiness just reflects it right back at him. His bloodlust right back at Ito Ogami, which means that when he tries to kill the living Buddha, his bloodlust will only reach back to Ito Ogami, and he will then die himself. It's like attacking himself, pretty much. And that's basically the philosophy that the living Buddha lays out.
It's a bit hard to grasp in that sense, but for some reason this resonates with the philosophy of being a samurai or a warrior, and Ito is accepting of that. He's like, you know what? You're right. I'm going to kill myself. I can't believe I did such a horrible thing. This is after the fact. He's already given up his life, and he's trying to enact revenge, and he can't. He's failed, or he's seen that he's failed. And the wise man's like, no, 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 you haven't failed. No, 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 just don't do this anymore.
He's like, hold on, wait a minute. Don't kill yourself just yet. Okay, he's like, okay, because Itogami was like, okay, I can't kill you, which means I can't follow the assassin's road anymore. That's the only road I have left to my needs. So he just opens his shirt right there, and he's like, pardon me a minute, I'll be quick, real quick. He says, I can't walk. I'm supposed to be walking the assassin's road. I can't kill you, therefore I cannot walk that road anymore. Forgive me, but I'm going to kill myself. That's okay.
Yeah, it's very formal. He's like, oh, just I can't do it. You're right. I got to end my life now. He's like, whoa, stop doing it.
Right on the spot. He's like, I'm killing myself right here.
Yeah, so he's not like some honorless character who does things because for money. he actually has some morals that he follows, but because of his life is dedicated to this one thing, if he can't do it, he's good as dead. And he's like, "What's the point in living?" And the monk's like, "Okay, well, if you want to actually kill me, this is what you have to do."
Yeah, here's what you're gonna have to do if you want to go ahead and get the right mindset so you can kill me, right?
Yeah, it's kind of a strange philosophy to have, but if you are a man of the people and you are without, if you have no self, you have no aspirations or ambitions in the world to really root you here, then you're like, well, yeah, if I show you how to do this, I'm gonna die and maybe the people will suffer, but that's what you want. That's what I'm gonna help you with.
And this is affirmed by the end of the story, but we don't have to get to that right now. But it does come back full circle. This mentality that the living Buddha has.
Not only that, this is part of what happens to Daigoro or Lone Wolf's son.
But he also reaches this state that later on, doesn't he?
It's kind of interesting, yeah, because when they look at Daigoro and they're like, oh, he's definitely the son of the assassin, and they're about to stop and they say, wait a second, this kid is really strange, and they look
Yeah.
into his eyes. And he's like, this is a kid who's seen slaughter every
Lots
day.
and lots of slaughter.
Like, there's something wrong with this kid. We don't know exactly what, but we don't know how he's come to be. And eventually, because of Daigoro is learning from his dad, not how to fight, not really, but he'll take risks. And there's a chapter, I think it's the last chapter. I can't remember what it's called. Yeah, Winter, is it Winter Flower? I think so. Or Tragic Osu. I think it's Tragic Osu, yeah. Where
Oh
there's a
yeah.
girl who befriends Daigoro and he tries to protect her and he ends up stabbing some guy and taking off and grabbing his dad's sword. And his dad's like, what are you doing?
I think it's in this volume actually. Yeah, the story of the tragic Osu. I mean, it's one of the kinder endings because she doesn't end up dead, just severely beaten and broken. But it's all a misunderstanding because he's like watching people fly kites, and then this like the Osu, the one or whatever they call Osen Osu or whatever, the little girl who's she's going off to prove herself so she can actually be hired into a samurai family on the lowest rank, of course. But like yeah, she finds a kite and she thinks it's Daigoro's, and she gives it to him, but it's not his. So when the a little samurai guy comes in, little samurai kid, he's like, "Hey, that's my kite," and he just smacks Daigoro around. But of course, Daigoro fights back because you don't do that to his dad wouldn't take that, so he wouldn't take that, and he ends up cutting the kid like a little bit. It's like a flesh wound, and he starts wailing like a little brat. He's one of those kids that cries loudly so he can get you in trouble. That's pretty much what he is, like a spoiled samurai kid. And it just goes downhill from there because they capture Daigoro because you're not supposed to cut noble samurai kids. It's a big no-no in Edo, Japan.
Especially with their own weapon.
Yeah.
That's really bad.
And yeah, they capture Daigoro, they take him back, and at first I think they were trying to be somewhat nice, and then one of the guys recognizes him, sort of like, okay, this is somehow they figure out that this is by the stance. That's right, by the stance that he took, because Daigoro uses the same stance his father does, and his father is Lone Wolf and Cub, a famous assassin by this point, and he's recognized by that stance. So he's like, okay, that kid does his stance. He has these weird eyes. He's a really weird kid. He's really tough. He's like a wolf's kid. So he might be the son of Lone Wolf and Cub. So it goes from there. Like it's all a big misunderstanding because the guy eventually thinks that Lone Wolf and Cub has been hired to assassinate him, which it was just a big twist of fate. It so happened to run into Daigoro. It so happened to run into the kid of Lone Wolf and Cub. But he's convinced after this that I'm being targeted for assassination.
Which is strange because most of the stories have to do with an elaborate plot that he gets himself into. Like the first part, like the first book of the volume, it's this big payoff. You're like, wait, what's going on? How is this going to work? And it's funny because the person who wants this person dead is already on death row,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah,
she
that
just
one.
has to be patient for this guy on death row to die. But she's like, no, 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 no. I want him to know it's by my hand he dies, not because of the law.
Oh yeah, it's a huge elaborate plot that he puts
It's
together to do this.
it's just so like how many steps ahead does he have to plan? Like he gets into a fight and then he gets captured and then he stays at the jail and he
He
gets,
gets
he gets
beaten,
beaten. No, he
beaten,
doesn't do
beaten,
anything. He just sits there. They beat the crap out of him.
like several times. Like they beat the crap out of him, and then like, okay, we'll give you a chance. Oh, you still don't want to talk? Well, wait, okay, beat the crap out of him again, and they beat him. They beat him senseless, like well, not senseless, but they beat him up several times, and he just remains normal, like he didn't take any damage at all. And then when the time comes, he's like, okay, he's on death row. Okay, time for me to take action. So he breaks some paddles, turns them into swords, and starts slaughtering everybody.
And
So he can
it's
just so he can go on death row.
and it's told also in a flashback as well, in a very similar. Actually, I guess yeah, it's the same style as the monk story, where the resort village that they went to um, for bathing, the hot springs. Um, the woman there that he saved ended up following Lone Wolf and Cub, and this is the next story. So here it is, right here.
Yeah, I was thinking if it was the same woman that followed him across the bridge in that from that hot spring story.
Yeah,
It looks like it is.
I think so. Yeah, they don't really share. It doesn't really say her name again, but she gets him in contact with this other woman, and that's the one. That's the client who wants him to do this job. But it's so elaborate and so like how would you know
You
you
know,
get placed into that exact cell with that guy, and that was the window that you had to.
it threw his throwing arrow.
Yeah, it's like all this like whoa, jeez, what's the hell?
Do they only have one cell for death row inmates or something? Because
They probably don't need too many. They die fairly quickly, I guess.
yeah, so I mean, if there was only one cell, then okay, that might make more sense. To be in the same cell, and he knew which window to throw the throwing arrow at.
Yeah, so
'Cause it
a
was really
story,
elaborate. It
yeah, a
was.
story like this, as elaborate as it is is great because that's what we expect. But then the next one, or Tragic Osu, is like there's no plot. It's just Daigoro running around having
In
fun.
fact, who thinks that Ito Ogami is after him, he's like that's one of the reasons why he thinks Daigoro is a distraction of some sort because like he even says that Lone Wolf and Cub is an assassin known for his elaborate plots. So he's like, okay, he's taking no chances. But there's no elaborate plot here. In fact, Ogami is sick. He has like some sort of fever in this story, so he's just trying to rest and relax. This Daigoro just happened to get himself in some trouble.
Well, the whole idea of seasons changing, like there's winter throughout this volume, which is neat. So it's snowing. There's sickness. There's some sort of a monk talking about gangrene, and you can't go in there, and
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
all
I
these
remember
other
that.
all these other little like sicknesses that are happening. So it's there, and there. I don't know who these guys are. They're basically investigators or policemen by the shogunate, and they're just trying to figure out because obviously an assassin gets around, people
Mhm.
start dying, so they send one of these guys up, and it's just more storytelling of the world just being the way it is, and it's pretty much a slice of life as this guy goes about his business and trying to make it as believable as possible, which I kind of like because it does ground it to a certain degree because there is that level of mysticism we hit, and it just keeps going up from there. Not really going up, but just it continues after the gateless barrier story, where it's a constant thing. It's always going to be about he's going to fight these guys that are also really really skilled, and later chapters that they get really close to killing him. So it's not like he's invincible, but the challenges keep getting higher. So
I mean, there's one time where he fights alone against like an entire armored cavalry unit, and he wins. But like it's a really tough battle for him.
right, there's one where I think there's like three or four guys on a boat, and they're all showcasing how skilled they are. They're all gentlemen about it, just like, yep, Like I'm the master of this, I'm the master of that, and like
Is that the
I'm
one with the hats? They're like the brothers or something. One has a club, one has a claw. Is that the one?
yeah. The other guy has like, is it brothers or is it like generals? I can't remember.
I think they're brothers. I know they're a little group together. I think they're brothers. I'm not really sure. I forgot. I haven't read that story in a while. But I think I know what you're talking about. Like one is a master of the claw, one is a
Right.
master of the club. I think one has just a sword, and the other one has a chain of some sort. I think
Yeah,
there's a chain.
there's all like really skilled dudes, and they're not
It's
messing
really
around.
cool. I mean, it's really interesting because they don't seem like bad guys. They're just trying to do their job too. They're just really good at killing. Just having to be really good at killing.
Yeah, the Fosy faces, the people he talks to, they're no longer just random people who think they're tough. They're really skilled. They follow a code. They're part of a house, or they follow the shogunate or the police or something. So they're very they're known. They're well known, and so they're pretty confident too. Not because they're cocky, just because they've been around for so long, and this is what they do. It's kind of like if he met one of the guys from the Yagyu, or he met another executioner. It's like they know how to kill people. It's just their trade. So these stories are getting more mature. They're getting slightly more spiritual.
And they get better. I mean, this series just gets better and better. It starts off really good, and it just gets better as we go on because they add in more philosophy, more politics. It goes deeper into the characterization, the codes of honor, the different outlooks that different people have, why they do what they do, the motivations. Like you even go to the motivations of the Yagyu. He's he usually you'd see this guy as being the two-dimensional villain, but he's not. He's also he has his own code of honor. He has his own ambitions. He just happened to make a really huge mistake by crossing Ito Ogami.
Oh yeah, no, it's the same. I mean, we look at even Game of Thrones with the Tywin Lannister. Like he was the central figure for being a villain-esque character, but he's just one of many houses, and he did that one thing, which was get Ned Stark killed,
Hmm.
and that just came back eventually, started a whole new war. So in the same regard, you have this leader of a house who wanted power, and they took out a smaller house, or one of the representatives of the Hollycock crest,
Hmm.
and they said, "Nope, this is not going to happen. I am throwing everything away to get back at you." And that's it. Yeah, imagine that. This is pretty much the one plot line done very well in the elaborate net that is the Game of Thrones storyline with George R. R. And just take Arya, but just focus it on one character, doing really smart, sophisticated ways of getting revenge and enacting other people's revenge plots for them.
With, except without the over-the-top magical powers, just spiritual enlightenment.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not like medieval sorcery or anything like that.
Like, you can't,
It's
like yeah, because Ito Ogami can't warp places and he can't
no,
like
he can't
change his face or
fly.
anything.
He uses guns a lot here and there. I noticed that.
Yeah, towards the end he gets in the movies they made about this series, it's a literal machine gun, but I don't think that's how it works in the
No,
actual
they didn't invent it
manga.
yet. No.
Because in the movies he just like pulls out the gun and it's just a machine gun. He kills wave after wave of guys with it. Where's he fitting all this ammo in that little cart?
Yeah, and in the book, I think they design a fan gun. I think that's one of the early ones. It's like a gun with
Yeah.
many barrels.
Yeah, he puts that's what he puts in the cart, and he only has like one shot with it or something
Yeah,
like that.
exactly. It's like a one-time thing.
But it actually shows him like lighting it. So he has to like get a little lighter, and he has to do it correctly, put it in the cart, and then it fires off. He just doesn't just like okay, pull the trigger and it starts firing everywhere. It actually shows you him going through the motions of lighting it so he can fire the gun when he needs it to fire.
Yeah, his I think his cart gets a few more tricks as the story progresses.
And it has like naginata. It's got like hidden swords, and it's got the little handles to his cart. If you pull out those handles, they're actually daggers. He gets guns in there. He has steel a bulletproof bottom plate that he can hide behind. It's ridiculous. I mean, obviously that's a really good idea. Have your baby cart filled with all sorts of weapons. But yeah, it's basically like his utility belt.
His Batman utility belt in the form of a baby cart or carriage. Oh,
Yeah, if you want to defeat Ito Ogami, just separate him from that baby cart, and you have a way better
better.
chance.
Wait, well, yeah, way better chance. Not one to one, but just in general, I think.
Yeah, your chances will still be low, but it'll be a lot better than if you had that baby cart nearby.
This is true, yeah. And if you get near the end of the story and Daigoro's getting older, it's like, ooh, no, just kill him early.
I mean, even Daigoro has a body count by the end of all this because of the baby cart. Because I think there's one time when an enemy comes close to them and tries to assassinate them, and Daigoro just presses the button and unleashes the blade shoots out and kills somebody. So Daigoro has some blood on his hands too by the end of all this.
Well, I think we got over everything we wanted to cover mainly, and the main story or the main chapter out of this was the gateless barrier one.
The only
But
other thing I wanted to go over was the ending to that the move, I mean, the way the living Buddha react, and then when Ito Ogami does achieve that mindset, and he does manage to kill the living Buddha. He doesn't. The living Buddha has one last thought, and it's not, this is evil, or he doesn't have any regrets over dying or anything like that. He says, is this not good? That a man, the man who perfects his path, is this not good? While the blood, he's being split in half, and
yeah,
then he says, "Is this not good?" And he dies.
he's already it's one of it's a little more dramatic, like when you see even in anime this happens. A guy is so fast that his appendage has already been split off, but it hasn't registered yet for whatever
Yeah,
reason. And he's contemplating, I think I was just chopped in two and then slicing.
and he splits in half.
Yeah, it's kind of dramatic or overly dramatic, but the idea is that he has become the monk. He's attained the same thing the monk has attained. So he's effectively a servant of the people, even if his services are death. So he's not doing it any now in terms of the monk's eyes. He's no longer doing it in terms of vengeance and whatever he had before, whatever he was feeling before, because now he's no longer feeling anything. He's now in this state of nothingness. He's doing it because he has a purpose. He has a goal, and it's this all-encompassing drive, which is, I guess, pure of heart or part of justice or part of his morals, whatever you want to then gauge the assassin as. He's no longer doing it because of some petty feeling. It's like, this is something that needs to be done, and I'm going to give up everything to do it. And I've proven to the Buddha that I've done the same thing as he did, and I'm
And he
going to
becomes
achieve it.
a Ogami becomes a gateless barrier, like he's supposed to. Because when he first encounters the living Buddha, he's like, okay, your bloodlust can be matched by other bloodlust or fear. But when we reach the state of Mu, the state of nothingness, you become a gateless barrier, which means that no one can touch you. At least no one with the with bloodlust or anything like that. What warriors have, and the only people who can touch you when you achieve the state of nothingness are people who have also achieved that same state of mind. And you see this at the end because the people who hired Ito betray him and say, "Okay, he killed our living Buddha. Go kill him." And no one can touch him. He's surrounded by like dozens of guys, but not one is willing to attack him until Ito Ogami chooses to meet their bloodlust with his own bloodlust, which he actually says. He actually says that, okay, you want me to meet your bloodlust with my bloodlust so we can actually fight, and then he does, and then they fight.
It's
And
interesting. I mean, yeah, this is what we were talking about before. How he comes against stronger and stronger opponents, and they have to have a certain level of skill and mentality to even attempt to get near him. And that's interesting. I'm kind of curious what those stories with those characters were all about. And I think that's one of the mentalities of the writer to say, okay, I'm going to have
yes,
to write another storyline for some of these other samurais. I think that, what was it, the Assassin's Road?
hmm hmm
Like, it makes sense to then write another story about the assassins that would have come after this guy and how they came about and why. And I don't think it's as elaborate in terms of philosophy and spirituality to achieve this state, but it it would be a logical choice for a writer to say, okay, now that I've created this metaphysical property, which is very simplistic. It's not like, it's not dragons and casting spells or anything like that. But there's this property throughout the world, and in order to challenge this protagonist I've created, you have to have this same level of status to get to. And why not create a second story or a subplot or another character that has to meet him or tries to meet him and fails or whatever the scenario ends up being. So
Right, and
that's
either failure or success, these characters tend to be pretty interesting characters in and of themselves. And that's one of the strengths of this writer, or one of the secrets of this writer that you see in Lone Wolf and Cub and Samurai Executioner. And I think it was he commented in one of the Samurai Executioner novels about how he goes about writing these things and how he can write interesting stories with such a limited scope as with Samurai Executioner. It takes place in like one little town. He says he always concentrates on character and bringing the character into life, not making him two dimensional. So you see this also in Lone Wolf and Cub when all these other characters that are just there for the story you never see again. They come in, but they're so interesting that they you wonder about their backstory. Sometimes you get a little taste of their ambitions. You get a little taste of their where they came from, and especially comes out when they tell Ito Ogami about everything because that's one of his rules. You have to tell me everything before I accept this job, and that's one of the secrets of this writer is that he puts a lot of thought and effort into constructing these side characters, these minor characters that they've become interesting people on their own. Like they could easily be a main character of their own story if you decide to do a spin-off of some sort. I
well,
mean the brothers. I mean I could read a story about the brothers. I mean that's pretty cool. That'd be pretty neat. I think.
well, yeah. If you have a depth of lore to work with, that's how you are able to write a secondary story or a tertiary story off them. So that would explain why he has that capacity and why he's a good writer because he knows how to write characters. Or
Mhm.
if you don't have a good lore or good character background to work with, uh, your secondary characters, your tertiary, whatever you do, it's gonna be, it's not gonna be worth reading. So it makes sense to create a second story or a complementary story instead of adding more characters to an existing story. Because if you added like, imagine that woman kept following him over and over again, like it would get redundant and it's not necessary. He doesn't need her help. It's not about her. It will never. This story is so simple. It's about one guy and his little boy enacting revenge on another feudal house that took his house apart. That's it. That's the whole story.
Major bloody revenge.
Yeah, there's the plot twists are not his plot. They're his elaborate schemes
Mm.
to to kill others and how good he is at that. And that's it. That's the beauty of the story. It's so simple and all the details are what make it interesting to read about and all the people therein that last the chapter. They don't there's not too many characters that last till the end.
Yeah, they die or they just never see him again. You just never see him again because that their course, their place in Itogami's story is over. Once it's done, it's usually done. And I think that speaks to the coldness of or the cold themes and atmosphere of this whole entire series. That Itogami doesn't really have any other connections other than his son, and any other connection he ever makes, they don't last.
Yeah, everything is to service his revenge and it's now become a spiritual journey for him, I guess
Mhm.
you could say, because of now he's attained this level beyond typical assassin's
It-
attitude.
it's like a dark enlightenment.
Yeah, it's like
That's how I
I am
feel.
this lethal machine that feels nothing, that very few other people can hurt.
Yeah, you would see in another story that they gain enlightenment so they can become better people, but he attains enlightenment so he can kill a living Buddha, like this, so he can be better at his job of murdering people.
Yeah, like
It's a dark enlightenment is
we
what
are
I'd
we
like
are
to say.
telling a story of an assassin, so innately his morals are not society's morals, obviously. But we understand him. We understand why he's doing it. And this is what I'm writing about in the book I'm going to be publishing soon about characters. It doesn't matter if they're good or bad, right or wrong, flawed or perfect. What matters is that you're attracted to them for a reason you understand. Even if that understanding doesn't make any sense. It's like, oh, he loves someone, but he ends up hating them at the end. It's like, why would you do that? Because he's so passionate, his mind has got warped or whatever. But you understand that. Oh, okay, he's crazy or he misunderstood. Got ya. I understand that. Okay, great. And that's it. That's all you need. So make all the anti-heroes you like. Make all the villainous protagonists you like. The undertrodden. All the people who are misunderstood. And give us a reason why they are the way they are. And it works in this regard because it's not too the philosophy and spiritual is not too much. It's just like, oh, this could be a real physical thing, but it's not like a um, it's not like a form of magic. It's not like a form of mysticism. It's just there. It's just this spiritual understanding of philosophy and how to live your life, and in this story of how to be a better assassin. So I think that's the main storyline we wanted to go over. I like some of the other ones
Mhm.
too. The Tragico Sue was cute. The
I mean,
two winter.
they're all great. I mean, they're all great in this one. They all have their own interesting little elements. But the main one I really want to go over was the one with the living Buddha.
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
the most important, I think.
Well, I think that was good. We're going to go over the volume 3 next week if we have time. And thanks everyone for paying attention, and we'll see you soon.
All right. Thank you, everyone.